Hello, I am Vicki Knott, the CEO and co-founder of CruxOCM. Welcome back. Here at Crux, we are on a mission to simplify industrial operations, enabling human-centered industrial autonomy. Now, we are focused on the energy sector and midstream pipelines specifically, and enabling autonomous operation with human-centered in these assets. So this increases safety and efficiency of existing energy infrastructure, so the pipelines that power our entire economy. And with that, with making these folks more efficient, of course, we get more energy at better rates in our homes. So today, I want to talk about the pathway to a human-centered autonomous pipeline. What does that look like, and how do we actually get there? So pathway to an autonomous pipeline, human-centered autonomous pipeline is really what we want to focus on here. So folks are somewhat familiar with the pathway to autonomous driving. That may not be super relatable to everyone, but here in the Bay Area, we see the Waymos with driverless cars quite frequently, like a lot. So there was a pathway to get there, and there's an image here that shows these 5 steps of how to get to a full autonomous vehicle, right? So still human in the loop, but maybe when society is eventually ready, we can read books while we drive. We're not there yet, right? But there is a pathway. So you can see here, when we were initially driving, we had our stick shifts, right? And we had to use the clutch, and we had to turn on our wipers. Now we have things like automated parking, right? Automated lane switching. So those things, as those advancements come, we are still very much human in the loop and in charge of those advancements and those autonomy. But that progression is also unlocking value the whole way along. And so what we see is the same thing happening in our pipeline control rooms, and how as we move towards, potentially a virtual control room, full human-centered industrial autonomy on our pipelines, we will be unlocking value as we go along. So that pathway, how do we get there? Well, let's actually go back in time and start with, levels of 0 to 1. So 0 would have been no automation. So think about back when we were operating our pipeline assets and it was only field crews and phone calls, right? That would be the 0. So 0 to 1 would be getting those initial PLCs in place and the safety automation and automated shutdowns if like a pump is doing something, vibrating more than it's supposed to. That would be the level 0 to 1. Then we go from level 1 to 2 in our pipeline world. And that level 1 to 2 is where we are now, which is central control rooms. So the central control room, hugely valuable, creates an environment where a control room operator can visually see digitally the entire asset's operation and operate accordingly. So from 0 to 2, what was seen was an unlock of about 20% increase in top line revenue generation, in like straight up margin. So that's been proven. We know that exists. Then there's level 2 to 3. So that's when we're starting to introduce conditional automation into the control room for these pipeline operations. So some of that may be some simple scripting inside of your existing SCADA system, or it could be much more complex, like the work we're doing here at CruxOCM, where we're fully automating startups, shutdowns, more complex interactions that control room operators had to have these mental models for and this cognitive burden, enabling the simplification. So same as in our cars, right? So we're enabling that simplification of the workload. So instead of having to, check all your blind spots, you've got little notifications letting you know, or a camera so you can actually see where you're going. So that's where we are with conditional automation. There are some pipeline operators in the sector that have been on this journey with us and are definitely setting the foundation for levels 4 and 5. So conditional automation, there is some of that. And a lot of the times folks will get the concepts for the conditional automation out of simulations or using a digital twin. So what I want to make sure is really obvious here is that Crux is not a digital twin. Crux is actually a closed loop system that enables human-centered industrial autonomy, right? So that's where, being able to go from level 2 to 3 and not just with scripting has a massive unlock. So remember how I said levels 0 to 2, that's already proven. We know we've gotten about 20% increase in top line revenue generation. Well, what we've seen with early clients working with us is that the additional volume on these integrated midstream companies, on the refinery and the pipeline, up to 30% increase in top line revenue generation. Now that is a margin that is impacting your margins, that is impacting your share price, right? So fantastic stuff that we're seeing. But if you're doing simple scripting from 2 to 3, you will not get that benefit on this pathway towards human-centered industrial autonomous pipelines, right? So we're not there yet. So, okay, so then we're going 3 to 4, right? And 3 to 4 is more of a leap, because this is where you want to get to the point where the pipeline essentially operates itself, but you still have a person there, and they're there if needed. If anything is upset, if there's an upset condition, something the system doesn't know, hasn't encountered before. Of course, we always need people there for the 811 calls, call before you dig, safety, 100%, there's always going to be human-centered industrial autonomy, or that's what we firmly believe. But taking these steps, stepping into 4 and then into 5, where maybe we're going into like a full virtual control room. And what that means is that instead of there being a physical room, all of the proper security is in place to enable folks to work and operate an asset from a laptop, from an office, anywhere. So that there's obviously a lot of technological hurdles required to get there. A large one being compute power and the connectivity of the existing software that's there. So to go from 3 to 5, you need to set a foundation, right? And we believe going from 3 to 5 has another 20% potential, if not even more, top line revenue generation. And that's because you're lowering your costs, you're increasing your margins, and you're generating more revenue, right? It's great stuff. So we believe, we're going into that 5, but the foundation has to be set up so that the technology and the infrastructure, the architecture of your software creates the connectivity between the other packages so that they can all talk to each other. And then when they can talk to each other and you have the compute power, you're able to unlock the levels of autonomy that we see, in autonomous driving or in in planes, even in commercial aircrafts. So that's the pathway of how we can get there. And so from where we are today, we know that we can get that 0 to 2, that 20% lift in top line revenue. Well, we believe there's another 50% here. And we've already proven with many clients that we can get that 30, and we're setting ourselves up to get that additional 20. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening to how we believe we can get to human-centered industrial autonomy in our pipeline sector. Energy powers our entire economy. So if folks want to talk more about, human-centered pipeline autonomy, autonomous pipeline, but with human-centered, please do comment below. Would love to hear what your organizations are doing progressing towards these goals. So please do subscribe here on YouTube. We have LinkedIn, of course, lots of fun content going up there. And then if you're interested and prefer the email, there's the newsletter as well. So awesome. Thank you all.